Indiana is the best team in the entire nation right now.
That was the only thing that made sense from this past weekend. And Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everyone enjoyed the games as much as I did, sitting on my couch all day long, not doing anything, and it was lovely. But when you think about it, the teams that win their conference championships and get a first round bye, those are the teams that should be advancing to the college football playoff semifinal and should be considered national championship contenders. Indiana, in the entire existence of 2 years of a 12-team playoff, is the only team that got the bye and advanced to the semifinals. That's the only team. So Indiana, in this entire race, in this entire field, even going back to the 2024 season, is the only team that actually, on paper, when you look at the stats, when you look at the rankings, when you look at the seeding, Indiana's the only one that makes sense. So I know that looking at these brands, it's very weird, right? That we had a matchup between the number one team in the country, conference champion, undefeated, versus a team that lost in its conference championship and kind of probably didn't really, like, there was enough people that could make an argument that they didn't really belong there. That when one of those teams was Alabama and one of those teams was Indiana, we have to just erase everything that we thought that we knew about college football. Is Indiana in a league of their own? No. If you watched Oregon and what they did to one of the best offenses in college football and Texas Tech and blanking them yesterday, then you understand that Oregon is also in that elite upper echelon. That I think there's other, elite teams that we have in this field, but right now, Fitz, it feels so much more wide open than I ever could have expected.
This is the biggest brand turnaround we've ever seen in sports, and I'm not being
Period.
hyperbolic. I mean, this is an end statement here. Curt Cignetti's turnaround at Indiana is unprecedented, and the reason many people don't realize it is because most of you weren't paying attention to Indiana. Why? Because before Curt Cignetti got there, they had more losses than any team in college football history. We are talking about whatever your favorite sport is now. Ask yourself, who's the worst team in the history of this sport? What has happened here is Curt Cignetti overnight has taken that team from being absolutely just god awful. He's turned the franchise into now a program that has a college football appearance and now a college football win over one of the biggest brands in the sport. If this ends in a national championship, this will be the most significant brand turnaround we've ever seen. And that's, at some point, that's why it's so hard for everybody to wrap their heads around. This is the equivalent of waking up tomorrow and suddenly the laughing stock is the best in all the land. This smacks every single school that says, well, it takes time. If you're a North Carolina Belichick fan and you're saying, hey, it takes a second. We got a lot of new players here. It takes a minute to get your culture. Curt Cignetti would like to have a word. If you're Alabama and you're turning around and saying, well, we've got a new coach here replacing a legend, it's going to take a second to establish who we are. Curt Cignetti would like a word. At some point, what we all have to acknowledge is that Indiana is doing this with less 5 stars than anybody. They're doing this with less recruiting than a lot of people. They are not one of the top 10 paid for teams in all of college football right now. Yes, they've invested in the program. But the fact is, Curt Cignetti is a miracle worker, and he has changed the entire culture of one of the worst teams in all of sports that is now dominating the season they're in. I don't think we can give this enough praise, Caroline.
Indiana is who Alabama wants to be. Let that sink in for a second. Indiana is now the standard of college football. Indiana is who Notre Dame wants to be. Indiana is who Georgia wants to be. And if you don't believe me, just listen to Fernando Mendoza's post-game press conference or post-game interview. He talked about how the Heisman was an award for all 22 players. Fernando Mendoza constantly gives credit to his teammates and to his coaching staff. We heard friend of the show, friend of the program, D'Angelo Pons after the Rose Bowl, giving credit to everybody else but himself. This is an unselfish program. This is a program where no one person is bigger than the team. This is a program that doesn't shoot itself in the foot. This is a team that doesn't make the silly mistakes. This is a team that just constantly and consistently goes out there and executes at an incredibly high level. That no one, not a single team in America, has built up the resume that Indiana has. Indiana went on the road and beat Oregon in the regular season. They beat the reigning national champion Ohio State Buckeyes, and they didn't just beat Alabama. They didn't just skate past Alabama. They shellacked Alabama. Show me a team in college football that has done what Indiana has done and has beaten who Indiana has beaten in the process while still not having any single smudge on their resume. We talk a lot about, I've said it so many times before, talking about the Alabama program, really just college football as a whole, is Nick Saban's not here anymore. Nick Saban's not going to be here to come save you. And there is an Alabama side of this game as well. But the closest thing that I think that we have that exists to Nick Saban, the closest thing to Nick Saban that exists in college football right now, I think is Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti has broken this Alabama fan base and has broken everything that we thought we knew about this sport.
2025 recruiting rankings, 0 5-stars, 1 4-star, 22 3-stars. All right, the 49th ranked class. And Curt Cignetti, that man right there with that swagger, just walked in and did that to Alabama. And I want to say this as we move to the Alabama side of this, Caroline. This does not mean Alabama is broken. It doesn't mean everything's wrong with Alabama. That's what most people are going to do today. And we're about to talk about the Alabama side. But one more time before we do it, I just want to make sure, Tide fans, you listen to this. This is nothing to do with Alabama. This has everything to do with the fact that Indiana is flat out better than everybody right now. They are undefeated. They have a shot at being the first ever 16-0 team in college football. Like, put this into context, put respect on their name. Bama, obviously, they're reeling. You look at social media, and we're right back to where we always are. Fire DeBoer. I saw all of it on Twitter X last night of fire DeBoer. I don't even care if we don't have a coach this year. This guy isn't it. I understand the harsh reactions here. This is just a tough pill to swallow because Alabama wasn't even competitive. The 3 points almost felt like a mercy gift at this. This game felt like it could have been 50-0, Caroline.
It really did just feel like they kicked that field goal just to not get shut out. And, you can love that. You can hate that. You can be indifferent about that. I've seen so many Alabama fans say, I don't even care if we regress. Get rid of Kalen DeBoer. Just listen to yourself. That is idiotic. You don't care that you get worse. You just want that guy out of the building, even though he just led you to a college football playoff quarterfinal. Like, please, get real. Does it hurt? 100%. Does it suck to get embarrassed the way that they got embarrassed in the Rose Bowl? Absolutely 100% it does. But I don't think you could expect Kalen DeBoer to be the guy that follows the ultimate guy in college football and all of a sudden have this program turned around and winning a national championship in year 2. Look at Georgia. I think Kirby Smart is one of the best, if not the best coaches in America. And Georgia will be watching the next round of the playoffs from their couches. Ryan Day had one of the best rosters in America. Joey McGuire at Texas Tech had one of the best offenses and one of the best defenses in America. It was one of the most complete teams in America. All of those teams are eliminated. That's just the reality of college football right now. A Saban-esque dynastic run that he had at Alabama kind of feels like those are extinct at this point. The field is too difficult. The path to a national championship is too hard. And roster construction has never been more difficult, or there haven't been more, landmines to navigate than there are right now. Do Alabama fans have every right to be embarrassed and disappointed? 1000% yes. But that's not an indictment, I don't believe, on Kalen DeBoer. Talk to me next year or the year after that or the year after that if Alabama is consistently going 7-5 and not even sniffing a college football playoff. But as long as you are in the dance, I can't be on board with fire this guy. He's not good enough. He's just not Nick Saban.
Well, and now you mentioned Ryan Day. Let's get there. Ohio State, they were upset, stunning. The largest upset so far that we've had, combined with the margin of victory in a college football playoff game so far. Miami takes down Ohio State 24-14. And this Caroline, I'm going to make an NFL comp for me. Let me see if you buy into this. There was a year, we all remember, not that long ago, where the New England Patriots were an undefeated football team. And as they were going into the postseason, they had the chance to be the best ever. And there was this plucky Giants team. This Giants team that was somehow a wild card team that nobody really took seriously. They have a bunch of history. Everybody loved the Giants franchise fine. But that team, not great expectations until they go on a wild card run that gets them to the Super Bowl where they do the impossible and beat the undefeated. I feel like that's Miami in this situation in this year's playoff because A month ago, it was Miami doesn't belong. A month ago, it was Miami shouldn't be here. A month ago, it was the ACC sucks. They don't even deserve a plate at the table. All of this is trash. And now we sit here, 2 wins because they didn't get a first round bye. 2 wins, 2 convincing wins, 2 dominant wins, 2 straight wins where their defense comes out and gives them a chance in a game that they never should have had in the minds of most of us. Miami is out here just slapping all the doubters down, and they are doing it with absolute force. This is an epic win for Miami.
1000% an epic win by Miami that I didn't even think was possible. And I'll tell on myself here. I didn't even think it was possible for Miami to go in to Texas A&M and beat Texas A&M at Kyle Field, but they did. So I think what I've learned about Miami is that the College Football Playoff Committee got it right. As much as Notre Dame fans want to whine about being on the outside looking in, if you punch your ticket to the semifinal, you have proven that you belong there. I think Miami can win a national championship. Why not? I can't buy in, though, to the fact that Miami is just this cutesy, plucky, precious little story. Miami had the 5th highest spending of any other program in America in NIL. Miami has a 5th-year quarterback that's played in some of the biggest games that the sport has to offer in Carson Beck. Miami has one of the best defensive players in America in Ruben Bain. Miami has one of the best young receivers in America in Malachi Toney. Miami, and I understand that this Miami team is not the Miami team of the early 2000s or the 80s or the U. That's still the brand that exists, but Miami has been a far cry from that for a very long time. But I don't want to act like Miami is just this cutesy, plucky little story because they've invested so much money into this team in order to be exactly where they are. That doesn't make it any less impressive. That doesn't mean that Miami doesn't deserve a whole lot of praise for what they've done in order to get here, because a lot of people didn't even want them in the dance to begin with. But they're not a Cinderella. If anybody is a Cinderella in this dance, it's Ole Miss, Fitz.
Well, it's hard for me because everything you just said is so spot on. And I don't know what the right term is for the team that nobody really expected to be. Like, when the season started, everybody expected Miami to be this, right? So you're right. Mm-hmm. But halfway through the season, we all thought Miami was going to be left out of this thing. And a month ago today, most people would not have predicted a month ago right now that Miami was even going to make it to the college football playoff because of the way that the committee had been telling us they viewed Miami versus Notre Dame. So that's why it feels Cinderella-like to me. But you're right. It's hard when you've spent that much money to really be a Cinderella. It's hard when you have Carson Beck to be a Cinderella. I don't know what the right term is for the team that everybody wanted left out, but I do think that this is an incredibly important moment for college football. Because if all the playoff ever does is give us a bunch of blowouts and the teams that barely make the playoffs don't make any noise and all we get is the number 1 team going out and going on a run, then all of this feels redundant. It feels blasé. It doesn't have drama. If you are somebody that sits here and says you don't want expansion of college football and you like it the way it is, Miami is dashing your dreams in front of you because this is a team that could have been left out. I believe that this run by Miami is going to be a catalyst for why the entire college football landscape looks at it and justifies expansion to 16 teams right away. I believe that this run is going to be why everybody looks at, and the struggle of teams that have had the bye is going to be why everybody looks at it this year and say, hey, we don't want to have a bye. We're going to get rid of byes. All of this speaks to college football playoff expansion. But most importantly, I mentioned that Giants run in the beginning because it's often praised as one of the best things we've seen in recent Super Bowl memory for the NFL. An improbable run to a championship becomes the sort of story that is told over and over and over again. Improbable runs to championships get 30 for 30s. They get documentaries. They get movies made about them. If Miami can run this thing through to a championship, this is not the best Miami team, but this would become the best Miami championship story because it would be a first. A team barely making the college football playoff, a team left for dead, a team that the old system never would have found a way for, coming in making this much noise in the playoffs is absolutely huge.